Welcome to part two of the Sales Development Accelerator special four-part webinar series that Ambition is running with our featured guest, Predictable Revenue and Predictable Prospecting author, Mary Lou Tyler. Part one was last week, and it was an amazing presentation on hiring and attracting SDRs. And for part two here, we're going to go into a really in-depth discussion on how to equip SDRs with the proper processes and technology. And Mary Lou has written the books, plural if you will, on this subject, and I've gotten a preview of her presentation. It's amazing. And yeah, so we encourage you, if you have questions throughout, this is going to be an interactive sort of process, and feel free to ask Mary Lou anything, contribute your own insights. Mary Lou, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead and tell people what they're in for here.
Okay, first of all, as Jeremy said, I have been blessed by hanging out with some really cool people in the top of funnel area, starting way back 30 years ago, but now most recently with Aaron Ross and then Jeremy Donovan, who he and I wrote Predictable Prospecting, which is it's really a post-predictable revenue book. 5 years of field study, working with clients, and really fine-tuning the top of funnel. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice just in time for the webinar. So today we're going to talk about how to equip SDRs, sales development reps, or business developers, or account development reps, however you define yourselves, top of funnel, with process and technology. Last week we talked about attracting and hiring, which was really a fun webinar because we dove really deeply into even how to onboard, how to train, how to interview for the right person. And I shared with my ups and downs and learnings over the years of starting out really horribly at doing it and then getting better and better as I started to apply more process to the hiring process. So today we're talking about really the process and technology side. We did people last week, and now we're looking at leveraging process and technology. Specifically today, we're going to talk about the KPIs, key performance indicators, the metrics that I'd like you to consider using as you start really tracking top of funnel activities and tasks. And then also the technology pieces of, again, there's so many tools out there. I'm sure your heads are spinning. I know mine are. And I am a systems engineer. I'm an engineering graduate with computer science. And I'm overwhelmed by the tools, by the amount of tools. So we'll talk about that and how to kind of overcome that. Oh my gosh, there's way too many choices. So in this part, really we're going to help you identify and equip the SDRs with, the libraries that are predictive in nature so that we have a better understanding of how long it takes to get from initial conversation or follow-up conversation if you're also tasked with following up on marketing leads and getting those through to a qualified opportunity more predictably and consistently so that if you decide to scale, you can, get those stretch goals out there and start working towards that. And then, of course, the tools, we're looking at really function of the tools that bottom line is to maximize your return on effort. We don't want you to work hard. We want you to work smarter. And there are tools out there that can help with that so that you're not trying to spin all these plates around, trying to figure out where you are in a sequence, who you talked to last week, and what they need this week. The software can handle all that for you. So let's start by looking at predictive campaign libraries. What I'm going to talk to you about is cadencing, which is what I call the rhythm of a sequence. And a sequence is the number of email touches or phone or social, whatever your touch methodology is. It really talks about the rhythm of those touches so that we can start maximizing which of the touches to do when, with whom, and in what topic area. We're also going to look at email templates, voicemail and sales conversion scripts, some of the compelling content assets that we use at top of funnel because we have to worry about 3 additional levels of buyer thought process when we're doing outreach programs. And I'll talk more about that. So let's start with Cadence. frequency and duration, I go in with clients giving them 3 vanilla benchmarks of cadences. The first one is email only, which I call affectionately the while you're sleeping engine, because this is one that leverages complete technology, runs in the background, and the SDRs respond to activity and engagement by the prospect. The second one is called email plus phone, very original. It's blended usage. It's taking emails and it's following up with phone, voicemails, or just connects, trying to reach them. And that blended usage is something that if you are the type of organization that is not afraid of the phone, I like to start my folks with the email plus phone blended. I do have some clients, though, who are very affectionately tied to the while you're sleeping engine. So it's okay to start there too, but your response rates aren't going to be as beefy if you don't take the phone into consideration. The third one is for those clients who are absolutely not fearful of the phone. And it's also the preferred benchmark for those folks who are doing account-based development. So if you're doing account-based selling where you have your top 20, maybe core accounts, then we look at this intraday calling, and I'll show you how that works with clients. This alone, if you're willing to do this, will boost your response rates through the roof. But you have to be diligent, and I'll show you how that works. So here's the while you're sleeping engine, and we call this campaign, I don't know why we name everything, but we call this campaign the Whatcha Campaign, which is the Wake Up the Chill campaign. And what you're seeing here is a recommended sequence that I have clients start with. If they are feeling like psychologically they don't want to bug their prospects, I start them on a 32-day business cycle. If the client feels that, you know what, we're adding value every time we send an email, then I ask them to try the 22-day sequence. Why do we do that? Because if we extend it out 10 more business days, we are now increasing the lag in the pipeline. So it's taking us longer to get from that initial conversation to the qualified opportunity. If we embrace the fact that the emails that we're sending are in fact full of good value, having people lean in because we are speaking their language, then the 22-day sequence is going to be better, which is about 2 touches a week. Now that box you see in the upper right-hand corner is the tracking of emails. So it says analytics 1 through 8. What this is showing you is an actual client that they gave me permission to use. The response rates that they get on emails 1 through 8. The first row is the IT persona. So if you sell to technical people, those are the rates we were able to achieve with our first run of the Whatcha campaign. And the response rate on the next line are the marketing people. You can see just by the numbers, we have a lot of work to do in emails 4, 5, 6, and 7 on the IT side because the response rates are really low. But overall, if you add this up, if we have 100 records that we're throwing through this, these response rates are very acceptable because in aggregate, the IT people are responding around 27% of the time, it looks like. And so for every 100 records that we send out through a sequence, we're getting 27 people that are going to respond positively, negatively, or neutrally, which means we're not burning our list. Our list fatigue numbers go way down. And we're going to generate more conversations, meaningful in nature, so that we can convert these folks over to a qualified op. Now, this cadence with the marketing people is obviously a little bit healthier. We have almost, I think, 35%. I don't know, somebody can add all those up. But this is essentially showing the 2 personas that we have built a Whatcha campaign for. 8 touches, email only, and the reps only respond to positive and neutral responses. The negative ones we take off the list, and then this list will be ready to be recycled. Here's a sample of an email plus phone sequence. This one's in the book, actually. So you can just copy it out of the pages, or you'll get a copy of these slides so you can, don't scribble this down, you'll have it all. And what this is showing benchmark-wise is the phone follow-up embedded inside of the email sequence. So if you look at 1 through 8 down the left-hand side there, you'll see we do a phone follow-up on email number 1. We do another one on day 5, which is email number 3. And then we do day 18 and 25, we do phone follow-ups. Now, leaving voicemails, I used to say first and last, but now I'm seeing the data come in that we want to stick one in the middle as well. And again, the voicemails are all very value driven. They are compelling. They make people want to talk to you. They're not just, hi, checking in, it's Mary Lou. No, it's really all about the pain points and getting them to either challenge them or to get them curious enough so they'll want to get back to you. This is another what we call delicate email and phone sequence. Again, if you're feeling a little bit antsy about touching your folks too often, this is one that's in the book as well that we use with clients. Again, I try to get people to do 7 to 10 touches. But there is a mindset change that you have to believe in your heart that you have something of value to say to your prospect and that you are also a peer of your prospect. And we talked a little bit about that last week. Now, this third calling that we talked about briefly, the Intraday Immersion, really looks at the prospect and the target. So in this example, I'm showing you Charlie, who's the CMO, a B2B CMO. He's our actual guy that we want to go after. But all the people in that second ring, CEO sales, line of business marketing, those are people who directly influence Charlie in a business setting. And then the third ring there are the people that indirectly influence Charlie. So when we do a phone immersion project with clients, this is what it looks like. We basically start with the email sequence, and then on week 2, email number 3, you'll see that middle row there. We're actually going to call in and around that bullseye intraday. So we're basically doing a blitz call into the company, and we can probably only do 10 at a time with the goal of either finding the right person or getting someone who will champion a first meeting for us. This increases your response rates through the roof because we're making a concerted effort to call in and around the bullseye to be able to get a meeting. The clients who use this are very successful. Their rates are, really high, like higher than 50% response rate, because they're taking the time to organize their calling lists by looking at this bullseye. And then after that email goes out, they have seeded their calling queues, which means they've stuck names in there for all these folks, and they're actually calling. We do it again after email number 7. So week 2, week 4, week 2, week 4. They do these blitzes. So that is something that I think if you guys take a little stab at that and maybe do your top 5 accounts and do it every other week, I think you'll be very happy with your progress. Now, the email templates we use are also based on relative position in the pipeline. You've probably heard a lot of talk about hyper-personalized emails and mass-personalized emails. We use both, and if we have a lot of records to work on, we use mass-personalized, which is taking data elements out of the database from our CRM or whatever we're using as a recorder for sales conversations, and we embed the emails with that personalization. If we're doing those accounts, where those 5 accounts that we're focused on, we'll probably want to hyper-personalize, which means we use a template and then we mark it up from there based on the persona that we're trying to go after. So here's an example of a mass personalized email template. Now you'll notice in these orange boxes, this is a framework that I call Compel with Content that I set up for clients. Because I'm teaching sales representatives how to write emails. When I'm not working usually with marketers, I'm working with salespeople. So I put them through this rhythm of creating an email, no matter whether it's 85 words, 480 words, it doesn't matter. It still follows this particular flow where we trigger the client, the prospect, with some, curiosity, alarm, mystique, power, whatever it is that motivates your guy. We put that in the subject line. We immediately go to an obstacle or a pain or a challenge, and then we show them how others have reached the outcome that they're probably looking for, we then immediately transition with specificity to the opportunity ahead of them, and then we always suggest a call to action. All of our emails for business development, top of funnel, must have a call to action. That's the non-negotiable Mary Lou rule, because we're looking to get either time on the calendar, we're looking to get them to click through to something, we're doing a passive call to action of having them take a look at something or get back to us, whatever it is. Now, again, we see this box up in the upper right-hand corner is that we are actually being really diligent about tracking response rates. And if we do a click-through rate, we're tracking that. We're also trying to figure out which of these mass personalized emails fits best with the persona. So we're sending this one to marketing and IT, and then we organize things by pain, by themes. So we're constantly, every time an email is sent, we're looking at the analytics, because why? We're trying to take the best path for our sequence and cadence and shorten it as much as possible so that we can reduce the lag. So if we think about it, if emails 1, 2, and 5 are high producing, we're going to probably want to move email 5 into the third slot. So we have 1, 2, and 3 of high producing. Why do we want to do that? Well, because we want to shorten the lag in the pipeline, have those conversations sooner so that we can get them through to a qualified opportunity. This analytics is not difficult to track, but you need to know what to track. So I'm listing those things that we track up in the right-hand corner. Response rates, we always want to go between 7 and 9% response. We're low here. Click-through rates, we want to go greater than 11%. We're good here. And then we want to know by persona who is the one that's engaging. And we actually break it down, marketing versus IT, on a separate worksheet. But for right now, this is what I wanted to show you. So when you start working on your sequences, I want you to think, okay, what's the response rate? What's the click-through rate? What pain theme is resonating? Maybe we should bump pain theme number 5 up to pain theme number 3, like we talked about.
Mary Lou, I have a quick question. I love this, first of all, and I also want to know, do you break it down further potentially with other segments like industry or something of that nature to help? Or do you kind of try to stick with just persona and theme as your variables?
No, because the framework that we set up with clients, we go through an assembly process. In the assembly, we're building our list. So our list is already segmented the way we want to segment. So we do segment as much as possible. And then when we go into these sequences, we know that this sequence is attached to a list, and the list has the characteristics of either being geographic, firmographic, whatever it is that we're trying to do.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thanks for stopping me.
Well,
Okay, so for those of you who are inundated with, we must hyper-personalize. Yes, I agree with that. And I agree with that if you're working on a smaller subset of records, because once you start personalizing in a hyper fashion, you are now manually doing your process. And we are lovers of automation, and as much as possible using automation to dwindle those thousands of records down to the top 10, top 20, whatever it is. And then you apply hyper-personalization against those. So the rule of thumb that I use with clients is, if this record is in the working status, meaning you know the right person, you got the right person, you have a pretty good understanding of the bullseye of who needs to get what email and who does what, then yes, hyper-personalization is fabulous, because you're going to bump up your response rates. And here is an example of hyper-personalization where the response rate is 11.2% and the click-through is 12.7. Now, what I did in red is circle or square out the area that I hyper-personalized, and everything else in this email is a template. Okay, so if you have 20 reps that are doing these hyper-personalized emails, then we're going to want to put those in templates, because the templates, when used, are going to help us with the analytics again, so that we know which hyper-personalized templates are resonating the best, the fastest and have the highest success rate. So that's what this is. And again, it follows that same flow of triggering to the challenge or obstacle, contrasting that to the outcome, providing specificity to give the proof to the opportunity, and then a call to action. The next thing that we also track is the voicemail scripts and any type of sales conversation scripts. Now, some of you are probably rolling your eyes saying, why does she want us to have a script? And it's not that I want you to have a script. It is, though, that I want you to write down what you're going to say, because I bet if I were to record you, a week of recording of you on the phone, you would sound very similar for each call. So you do build a script in your head. And all I'm saying to you is make sure that you write it down first to make sure that you're covering all the points of the flow of stating the challenge, contrasting it to the outcome, et cetera, et cetera. So here's some examples of scripting. And this is a voicemail script example. And what we're using here is the theory of triangulation. So remember that bullseye we were talking about before? Well, this is one of the scripts that one of my clients uses in order to call in and around that bullseye. And the return call rate is 9.2%, which is pretty good. And the reason why this is a triangulation is because you'll see down in where it says influencer number 1, influencer number 2, we're actually telling the prospect that in the next few minutes, I'm going to reach out to network with his 2 peers or colleagues and tell them the same thing. So there's a little bit of social proof in here. There's a little bit of psychology in here. Excuse me, but this voicemail script is what we use, triangulation, when we're doing the immersion calling. Here's a sample of a Find the Right Person script. This is directly from the old Predictable Revenue book, and it still works today. So we do go in with these scripts as a baseline with clients. So here's a couple for you to try out. And the success rate is 83%, meaning that for every 100 people you call, that are in a company or like 20 companies or whatever to look for the right person, you're going to have a success rate of talking to somebody. And whether or not it's going to be positive, negative, or neutral is a different story. But the fact that for every 100 calls that you actually connect to for Find the Right Person, 83 are going to have a dialogue with you in some fashion. The next thing we do is we look at implication questioning, and I'm showing you an example of the Spin, which is a book written by Neil Rackham, I think in the 90s, where he looks at strategic problem, implication, and questioning, a different type of questioning for each of those. And we use implication questioning of the Spin model for developing the pain awareness. Now, what this is showing you is essentially the questions that we're going to be asking our persona once we get into the first meaningful conversation. We organize the pain by 3 distinct types. And this is all set up when we're actually working on defining the buyer, the persona, the person that we're going to actually try to talk to. We decide what pain themes they are. And here the pain theme was inconsistent lead quality. And we decide whether this is a strategic, a financial, or a personal pain. And then those columns, the first column is talking about what level of awareness these folks are in. Now, with inbound, those of you following up on MQLs or marketing qualified leads, we typically are knowing that the people are at least aware, maybe interested, and evaluating, because they engage with us, they fill out a form, there's a lot of indication that they wanted to talk to us. In outreach, we have 3 other levels that we have to worry about. The first one is that they're unaware of who we are. So if you're selling a disruptive product, then you are going to be reaching people who have no idea who you are, why you matter, and why they should care. So we have to worry about that and start thinking of the types of questions we want to ask them in order to bubble their awareness up to a point where they're interested. So that's what this table is. And each of my clients works on a pain awareness table for every persona, every person that they want to talk to, top of funnel. The next area is the actual content. Now, if you're doing any type of click-through content, and typically what I recommend in sequences is emails 3 through 7, usually have some type of content asset that we want them to click on. A lot of times, clients don't have a lot of content, or they have 2 pieces of content that are white papers that are 6 pages long. But if you're thinking about this level of awareness, I am not going to consume a 6-page piece of content if I'm in this unaware or not even problem aware yet stage. But I may look at a postcard size thing, or I may look at a graph. So what we do is we really think about where we are in the relative buyer's mind, and then understand really what's of interest to them and what they should be consuming as you build through this level of awareness. And just think about your own buying experience when you're going out to buy something and you do some research. There's some pain that you experience that got you motivated to want to buy something. And all I'm asking you is to chunk down those levels of awareness and then think about how you consume it. You know, the content pieces. Are you going to be looking at something 20 seconds to a minute? Well, then you have to make sure that your click-through content resonates at that level. So these are just some questions that we ask ourselves to determine essentially how often we should add content, how long it should be, and really the delivery pieces of that content. Here's some ways that we create and deliver content. So I'll have you take a look at that while I cough. And this is essentially click-through content, but it's also ways that you can get your message out there. Take that 5-page or 3-page white paper, flip it on its side, and maybe, you know, do a LinkedIn post that's 480 words long, or create a newsletter using PowerPoint, or whatever it is that you do. But this will give you some idea of the channels of delivery that we want to think about, that our buyers are looking at in order to get our message out there to help us, especially with the While You're Sleeping campaigns, where we're trying to really get them to come inbound in an outreach sort of way. But we need to have this channel, this content out there so that they have multiple ways of finding us. Now, the actual format for the click-throughs, these are the different types of formats that we've used in the past. And again, we track everything. So we know whether if that CMO guy is going to download a PDF, we want to know that he downloaded a PDF instead of looking maybe at slides on LinkedIn. Or maybe he preferred a video versus audio. We try everything in terms of click-through so that we can see which type of modality is resonating with the buyer. And again, the whole reason for doing this and testing is to reduce that lag in the pipeline so that we can push more people through with more quality and get them through faster. So here's some examples of, again, go back to your sequence, think of your emails, and these are some themes that we use as we're worried about the level of awareness of our buyer. So I could take, for example, a case study, and I can repurpose it 5 different ways if I wanted to, in order to be able to reach my client, my prospect. I could do essentially a trigger to get them curious. I could do something about a brand association about what we want our company to be known for. I could start a debate. I can get on a group session and talk about my case study, but talk about it in a way that starts a debate or controversy. I could create a frequently asked questions guide, a should ask questions paper, like 1-pager, or an easy ask questions out of that case study. I can do an endorsement and a testimonial. The reason why we want to do this is we want to see what's resonating with our buyers. And a lot of times, case studies and endorsements usually resonate with people who are of higher level of awareness. They're interested, they're evaluating. But if you're unaware, if you're problem aware, but you don't know a solution, if you know there's a solution, but you don't know a vendor, then these other modalities are going to resonate more. Having that should ask questions document out there that's based on the case study, but it's going to hit those people who are sort of on the fence or not quite getting on the fence yet. So I want you to think through that. And we're going to go into the buyer thought process, and I'll show you how we navigate through. And again, these slides are downloadable, so it's a lot to absorb right now, but I want you to at least start thinking, wow, there's 5 levels of awareness. We're probably only writing for 2. So along the left here are the actual stages of the sales process: cold working, qualifying. If you're a predictable revenue fan, you'll recognize these stages along the left. And along the top are those buyer thought stages. And then inside these blocks are the themes that we add to our content and also to the body of the emails for those sequences. These are basically, it's mapping out how to repurpose content based on themes, based on the buyer behavior of unaware through evaluating, and also based on relative position in the pipeline. Where is this person actually sitting? Are they still cold? Are they in working status, meaning I'm trying to get a first meeting scheduled, or am I actually qualifying them now? So I'll let you absorb that for a second, then I'll show you a more detailed version of it. And just so you know, this is really done with all clients who want to put in a predictable revenue framework. So this graph, again, shows the mapping. It also shows how long the content should be. So if you look now, again, we have along the left-hand side is essentially the stages are at the bottom: cold working, qualifying. The thought process or behavior is 1 up, so unaware through evaluating. The content length is telling you how long this content should be that you're clicking through to, that you're attaching to your emails. And then the themes, again, are also organized by awareness, so that you can see the case studies and endorsements that you probably all have are way over there on the evaluating side. And we need to get them repurposed so that we're starting conversations, we're poking, we're agitating, we're getting people to start thinking about that they have a problem. And probably a lot of you are looking at your content now thinking, wow, we have the stuff, the beefy stuff, but we really need to get those little bite-sized chunks of and nuggets that get people, trying to just, wow, I didn't think of it that way. That's really where we want to get. And in the unaware and aware stage, the cold and working is where we're using and leveraging technology with mass personalization. When we get over to evaluating and interested, then we're probably switching to that hyper-personalization of emails, but we still need some good content to apply to those emails so that we can watch behavior. So the tools that we maximize now, return on effort, are all designed to essentially work on reducing lag and eliminating what I call black ops or covert activities. There's always somebody in the organization for business development who's an outlier, and we can't quite figure out what he or she does in order to facilitate qualified opportunities regularly. What we're trying to do is get the other 80% of people into a process so that everyone is performing top notch. We like to streamline the routine work so that you're not overwhelmed with administration. And we also want to be able to run campaigns, like Jeremy was asking before. How do we segment? Well, we run overlapping campaigns in order to do that. We actually have lists that are assigned to different types of firmographic, sociographic, whatever it is that we're looking for our segmentation. We may have tiers of accounts that are overlapping campaigns. So our core accounts may run in one campaign. Our extended universe, everybody else that could be a good candidate for us, but we can't spend the time on, would be a campaign. And so we are running a ton of stuff, and it makes your head spin at the amount of stuff that we're doing. So we really need to leverage technology in order to be able to maximize that return on effort. So here's some optimization. Key performance indicators, the reason why we use them is because we're really trying to uncover and evolve best practice. Now, I have a lot of benchmarks that I can give to you, but it's a starting point. It's not the magic bullet. It's basically a place where you can start, where I know that you'll get some immediate successes. But in order to really maximize your return on effort, you have to embrace this mindset of testing. And so everything that we do, we test with KPIs, and the metrics that we use are only those that are actionable in nature. This concept of vanity metrics does not exist in this framework. We can't afford to track things that are not meaningful. So the KPIs that we put together are really designed to establish an intra, meaning inside of each stage, cold, working, qualifying, and inter, which is what it takes to go from cold to working to qualifying, pipeline metrics. So the first thing you need to do is figure out what the heck is our funnel? What does it look like? Well, this is an example of one of my clients who is a blended inbound and outbound. So they're covering inbound leads and outbound leads. They're also Europe and USA. So we first map out the funnel itself to say, what is it? And do we have a cold, working, qualifying queue? Or do we just have cold and working or cold and qualifying? What is our normal rhythm for generating an opportunity? So we map that out first. And then once we map that out, then we can actually look at the activities that we're going to be doing by stage. So this is giving you an example. We're starting to now really uncover what those metrics are, those metrics that are actionable in nature, so that we can track them with specificity and improve continuously. So we adapt that lean methodology of designing the funnel, measuring it with our KPIs, actually, iterating when we start to see results come in that are statistically relevant. And then we compare this new design against a control. Our previous successful cadence and sequence is compared with a new one, for example. A/B split testing is what we call it. But it allows us to say, here's where we are, here's our numbers, we're going to change these things with specificity. We know exactly what we changed and why. And then we put it into a parallel process, and we continually do that, and we never stop. We never give up. We're always trying to eke out just a little bit more percent improvement. The next thing we look at is, what is our activity as an SDR, BDR, ADR? How much calling time do we really need in order to get from a cold record or follow-up record from marketing to a qualified op? This is from predictable revenue. So this is essentially this mapping process here that you're looking at is an SDR that takes 3 hours and 15 minutes to go from a cold record to a qualified opportunity. The 15 is the AWAF call, which is an Are We a Fit call. All it's doing is determining fit. Then that transitions to a 1 hour long with the decision maker. So Charlie, the CMO, if we could get him, we have a call with him. And then we have a 2 hour call or a demonstration or a presentation on the product. This particular process you're looking at here yields 8 to 10 qualified opportunities a month, average deal size around 50,000, just so you know. Your time may be different, because if you're spending 15 minutes before the lead gets passed over, then you're going to have to work out your rhythms based on the actual talk time it takes to get from cold to qualified. This is showing you activity goals at a glance. And these are metrics, again, that we use. Some of them are based on predictable revenue. Some of them are based on predictable prospecting. But we're looking here at the number of goals for each stage, whether they be email response rates, phone response rates, the total minutes in conversation. I mean, we get down to that level of detail because we're really focused on the predictable revenue formula of reducing lag and understanding what the metrics are at every stage in the pipeline that are meaningful in nature. If you think of this like a freeway and the mile markers are stages, each mile marker is intelligent within itself, and we're always trying to improve it. And then when we go from mile marker to mile marker, we're also looking to improve the speed of the time it takes to get from the first mile marker to the second to the third, etc. Now, these are the codes that we actually store into the database or your CRM to help us determine the pipeline formula. And there's not that many, as you can see. And if you're using something like a Salesforce, we use the type field of the activity file in order to generate these simple codes. And we ask the reps to do this on every call that they make that's meaningful in nature, or any activity that they make that we design in their playbook as meaningful in nature. The last section is technology. Now, what I like to do with technology is I like to look at function rather than form, because this is a sample of what's available just for inside sales. And I'm sure ambition is in there somewhere. But
I think we are in like the lower, like one of the lower boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you're like me, when you see this, your eyes just glaze over. At least mine do.
It's staggering.
It is staggering. I have the luxury, because I work with higher end clients, that to try to get software past their IT and included in the stack takes forever. So we only have a couple of things that we can use usually to get started. But if you're a smaller company, the door is wide open for all the stack. It's crazy. So again, we go back to the funnel when we're determining the function of a tool. We're really trying to figure out how we're measuring things through the funnel. If we're a heavy phone shop, do we need a dialer? Are we just making a few calls here and there, following up responses? That's a technology question that you need to really look at your funnel to determine. And you break it up into categories just the way that this thing is. And then you work through the funnel to say, okay, what do I really need? So I'm giving you here essentially the cold working qualifying and the tools function for each that I think you probably will want to consider before you purchase a tool. So in the cold queue, the left side is the task that we perform, and the right side is the function of a tool, if we had one, that we would want it to perform. So I'll just let you take a look down here. The cold queue is probably the beefiest, because we're trying to get thousands of records, dwindle down into the meaningful records that we want to spend time on. So there's a lot of tools that'll help us with, like I'm working with a client today trying to figure out where to build a list, because their lists through the normal sources is not cutting it. They can't go to a Zoom info. They can't look at the standard list vendors. They have to craft their own list because they have such a finite number of accounts they're working on. I have another client who only has 100 accounts that he's going after. That's it for a team of 3 SDRs. So we have to really get creative in the context within those accounts. And we're looking a lot at, essentially the tools that'll help us build a list, because as you all know, for outreach, we live and die by the list. It has to be a good list. We don't want to waste our time on deliverability issues. We want a solid list that we can replenish. And knowing that, and I think I shared this in the last one, the list fatigue that we have to worry about in outreach is about 40% on average. So if we start with 100 records, we run it through our sequence of 8 emails, we let it sleep, we may only have 60 of those 100 that are available the next time we wake up that list in order to use it. So we have to replenish that list with 40 net new records. So it gets a little unruly from a list management perspective if you're really trying to work a list the way we want you to. This is the working status. So again, the definition of working for me is that you found the right person, you have a pretty good idea of the function of the organization that you want to go after, you kind of know the people, you may not know exactly all their roles, but you have a good idea. So these are the tasks that we do on the left and the function of the tool on the right. And lastly is the qualification queue. which again, some of you may not have qualification, or some of you may blend the working and qualifying queues together in one, especially if you're doing one call. You'll notice the task here is this scoping 1, scoping 2. This is predictable revenues 315 process, 15-minute AWAF, are we a fit? 1 hour scoping call to determine whether you have enough information to then engage either people from your side or request people from their side to have a true discovery call before it gets handed over to the AE. This is dependent on you mapping your funnel to see really where is that demarc, where is that handoff point, and then these are the tools that, the function of the tools for that purpose. So where you can learn more about this, we really went pretty fast through this because there's a lot to cover, but all of the information I pulled for this presentation is in the book, Predictable Prospecting. Again, it's a second generation of predictable revenue. The reason why we built predictable prospecting was we noticed from predictable revenue, people were getting stuck in the sell the dream portion of the framework, which is actually building the reason why people should buy from you, why change, why now, why you. So this book was really built as a result of 5 years of field study after the release of predictable revenue, working with clients and seeing where everybody was getting sort of stuck and where the gunk was starting to fill up in the pipeline. And so it's a good resource if you're interested in having another book to reference, filled with email templates. We've put the sequences in there. We basically put everything that we could in 200 pages from all the work that we've done in the field. My co-author is a client of mine, and he went through the process with me and felt it was important for us to get the book out to people, because I generally work with only a couple clients a quarter, and I can't reach the thousands of people who need this help. So we put this in the book. And that is it for me, Jeremy.
This was excellent. Thanks so much, Mary Lou. Any questions from people regarding the presentation? I know you dived into a lot. I have a question. How important is it, do you think, for just in general at a high level, marketing and sales to be communicating with each other in terms of getting the content organized, having an easy way to have reps access it and pull it back, all that sort of stuff? Like how can reps be most efficient with finding the right content to deliver and doing all those touches over social, and how much of that falls into marketing versus reps?
Well, I think that the planning stage, and we always use the term, what is it? Cut once, plan twice, or whatever that, measure twice, cut once. We really want everybody involved in the planning process and map out that funnel. You really look at that funnel, really understand the prospect personas, and chapter 3 of our book is in depth on prospect personas, because that's going to start driving the content needs. And marketing, their buyer personas are designed to get an MQL. We need a prospect persona designed to get us a qualified opportunity at top of funnel. So we go further in to the prospect design. The sales reps, because they're having these conversations, should be able to drive the marketers saying, look, we need at this level of, if we're at the cold stage, these are the levels of awareness that our prospects are in. We need content that is going to drive the behavior up that ladder from unaware to problem aware to solution aware to finally interested. So can we take the case study that you wrote and can we repurpose it into maybe a one-page wireframe that we can show in graphical format? And that dialogue with marketing is invaluable, because they just don't, they build the great white papers and the longer pieces of content usually, but they're focused on interested and evaluating. They want people in to fill out a form. What we need, though, is to extend that content, and with their help, we are looking to take the content, repurpose it into smaller bite-sized chunks. Now, sometimes the reps have to do this themselves. Marketing just says, here's your white paper, have fun. And so, as the team now, the business developers, part of that day in the life that I showed you maybe is taking 15 minutes as a team and repurposing a piece of content together. That gets stored in a library, and then you test it as a click-through on one of those emails in the sequence to see how it did. It's constantly building things together, testing it, looking at the results, and then tweaking it until you get to a point where your benchmarks are above what the baselines are.
Great answer. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's we deal with, that's one of my biggest challenges as a marketer, is trying to figure out how to make that happen for our guys, because they have no desire to be creating that stuff.
Yeah. And that's fine, but not everybody has that luxury of having a marketer who's willing to do that. A lot of times it takes someone like me coming in to say, look, we need to align marketing with sales, but the pieces that you're building are making the assumption that our people are further along in their buyer thought process than they really are, especially for outreach. We're getting people who have no clue who we are sometime.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to answer real quick, we had a question come in. Are you able to access recordings of this webinar and the part 1 webinar online? Yes, you will. The part 1 recording is actually on the Ambition blog. If you go and look for, I believe the title is How to Hire and Attract SDRs. And this one will be online as well shortly. So we still have a few minutes left. Any other ones coming in? Or Mary Lou, anything else you would like to quickly say?
Yeah, I think the main thing here from this lesson, from today's lesson, is that with tools, we're really looking at the function of our funnel. And I want you to really think through the talk times of how long you guys are on the phone, on average, from initial conversation to qualified op. Exactly, time it. Actually time it, because you're going to find it's going to be at the low end 15 minutes, maybe at the high end a couple hours. That needs to figure in when you're building your email content and also your sequences, because if you are only doing a 15-minute call, then you're going to want to reach people more. You have to reach more people to pass them over so that the reps can close those leads. If you're going further into the funnel, then you don't have to have as many leads that are passed over because you're doing the bulk of the work. So really think through that passing the baton, we called it in predictable revenue, but where that handoff point is, and that will tell you a lot about the sequences that you should set up. And then the other thing is really, really, really embrace the phone. It's over and over again. The formula that I tell people, it's 15 emails equals 1 phone conversation. So if you can get those best time to call figured out. And, the other thing that I see a lot with SDRs is if you give them a call block from 9 to 11 and they'll call from 9 to 11, that could be the worst time for your prospect persona. So you have to really move that block around and be creative. Maybe it's a 7:30 to 9 block or a 6 o'clock to 7:30 at night block, depending on who you're talking to, because the goal is to get 5 meaningful conversations. And if you can shorten the amount of time it takes to make those connects, that's all building into the pipeline lag reduction, which is really what we're going for.
Great. And I have one more quick follow-up for you, Mary Lou. What are some organizations that are doing this really well? Some examples of ones that you see that are killing it.
Well, Outreach.io is a former client of mine. They're just like really doing well. And I borrowed some stuff from them because in their block times and in their role plays, they actually do 15 minutes, I think twice a week, of people crafting emails. So those hyper-personalized emails, they spend time writing as part of the SDR function. That's brilliant. I would have never thought to do that. I'm more about, practicing the phone techniques, objection handling. I have a big role play script for that. But they actually do the writing of the content assets and also the content, the actual email content. And so their rates are just keep getting better and better. They're doing a good job. Talent is another client of mine. They're spread all over the world, but they're also really focused on improving those metrics, and they look at their data daily with to see how they can eke out just a percentage improvement.
Awesome. That's yeah, and I'm familiar with outreach as well, and Mark Hosaglow is doing an amazing job over there. So thanks so much, Mary Lou. I think this about wraps it up for this session. Just to remind everybody, we'll have another one coming out soon. Quick question for you, Mary Lou. What's the best, if we had an interest in reaching out to you regarding services, what is the best way to connect?
If you want to pick up the phone, you can call me at 714 area code 969-6213. That's my office line, direct. You can reach me at maryloutyler.com. There's a contact form there. I'm on LinkedIn, Mary Lou Tyler, and Twitter, Mary Lou Tyler. So, if you're the brave soul, pick up that phone and give me a call.
Absolutely, yes. And this has been excellent. So, Mary Lou, thank you so much. As everyone will be able to see, we'll have a part 3 coming up here next week. I believe it is next Thursday, and this is going to be another really good one. We're going to be focusing for part 3 on how to make SDRs more effective at time management, which I think we all, SDR or otherwise, will appreciate. So thank you so much, Mary Lou.
Thank you, and I appreciate all you guys hanging out with us today. And again, if you have any questions, please, reach me. My website even has a Ask Mary Lou kind of voicemail thing. You can leave a message there. So I'd love to hear from you. Since we're outreach people, that's what we do. We reach out, and I do return all the emails and phone calls I get from people because I know what an effort it is to reach out and start conversations. So I'm there to support you.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, everybody. That wraps up session 2, and we will see you guys next week, next Thursday at same time, noon Eastern. And everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.